Good evening. It's Wednesday evening and it's time for Keto Confab. We meet every Wednesday evening, 7 o'clock here on Zoom, and anyone's welcome. And so this is our weekly check-in with people, how you're doing. Does anyone have any questions? What's been going on in your life? Are you meeting your goals? And so last week, Patricia shared with us a doctor that she had found on YouTube. And I have gone down a rabbit hole with this man. And I've been watching a lot of his videos. And so I can't say his name. I know his first name is Robert, and the last name is Cywes, I think.
Cywes.
Cywes. Um, but he's got some very interesting videos. I watched the ones on carb addiction, and I'm definitely carb addicted. I've known that for a while. And Scott watched the one on autism because our daughters all have autism. And let's see, I watched a couple of videos he did with Dr. Barry, together with Dr. Barry. I watched his videos on hypertension and one on heart disease and one on IBS. I mean, I really went down the rabbit hole with him. Say his name again for me, Patricia, because I can never remember it.
Cywes.
Cywes, Cywes, and he is the carb doctor. That's what his channel is on YouTube. I'll put a link to his channel in the description in case anybody forgets what his name is and how to spell it and everything. But he's got a lot of, good videos. And you know how YouTube is when you put in one guy a lot of the time, then you start getting others that are similar to him that you've never met. So I've gone down the rabbit hole with a couple of them that I had not listened to. There was a particularly good one about cholesterol and how important cholesterol is in our bodies, and a discussion of how cholesterol is used in our bodies to help us heal and stay healthy and function appropriately. And even though, I've taken anatomy and physiology and work in the medical field, I'm not an expert in cholesterol. I actually learned a great deal from this video. I mean, I did not realize that our body produces cholesterol to then be changed into the bile that is put into our bowels to help digest our food. And when you take a statin drug because you've got high cholesterol, that makes your body stop producing that cholesterol, and that's not healthy. Because then you can start having all sorts of problems with digestion. The other thing he talked about is how cholesterol is one of the basic ingredients in all of the hormones that our body makes, and how many people out there have hormone imbalances that they're taking a statin drug, which basically shuts down the body's making of cholesterol. And so, I mean, and then this guy talked about how cholesterol builds up in the arteries, and how our diets change the type of cholesterol that we're building up, and why certain cholesterol is more dangerous in the arteries than other kinds. So I will find that video and link it in this description. I can't remember the guy's name at the moment. I was listening to it while I was at the dentist today. And so I wasn't watching the screen and seeing his name and stuff, but it was another really good discussion. And there were two doctors on the video, and one of them had a list of what you need to take that list in a written form to your doctor. And when they tell you, I want to put you on a statin drug, then you say, yeah, but what about these 5 functions of my body's natural cholesterol that I need to be healthy? If you give me a statin, these things are going to be turned off and I'm going to be a mess. And if they can't answer that question, you need another doctor. So I thought the video was very interesting, very educational and helpful to me because, as you know, I'm trying to figure out how I'm going to talk to my doctor the next time I go to her, because she thinks that 239 total cholesterol is bad. But then looking at my breakout numbers of LDL and HDL, they're good. And both of these doctors, and then Dr. Cywes. Okay, thanks. See, I just cannot keep that in my head. Dr. Cywes both say it doesn't matter what the total cholesterol is, as long as the numbers are in the right balance and there's a certain ratio to them. That's what you need to look at. And so I find that very interesting. And so anyway, that was my week. And so
to help you remember Cywes's name is think about the color of blue, which is cyan, which is CY.
Okay.
Maybe that'll help.
Maybe it will help, but you know, sometimes nothing helps me. I'm just a lost cause. So, okay, so that was my week going down the YouTube rabbit hole of everything Dr. Cywes and these other people that were, you know, suggested to me. I need to start figuring out my own beliefs and thoughts and what I can understand of the science about cholesterol and get that down before I go back to my doctor. So
Dr. Berry just posted a video today on a statin study that came out, and it's one of the things they talked about, and I read it in the article that came with it too, was, you know, they say that the statins can decrease your risk by 50%. What they don't tell you is that what if your risk to begin with was only 2%? And now after you take a statin for so long, now your risk is 1%. It cut it 50%, even though it only dropped at 1%. You know, and so you have to know your numbers. I had my CAC score, which was 0. My, you know, HDL is very high. My triglycerides are very low. You know, I'm not going to take a statin because my risk is very low to begin with. And even if it cut it 30% or 50%, of what, you know, I mean,
yeah, that's a very valid point.
Yeah, and Dr. Berry said the only people that really need to take a statin is somebody that has already had a heart attack and is trying to prevent a second one. That's the person that benefits from taking a statin, not everybody else. It just reduces their risk a percentage, but you may have started with a low percentage. And that just came out today.
Yeah. I'll have to search that out because that's, you know, that's very valid. You know, if you only have a 1% chance of having a heart attack, then why would you take some drug that has possible side effects to cut that in half to 0.5? Ooh. Yeah. So who wants to talk about what they were doing besides Jenny? We should make Jenny talk. Are you willing to talk, Jenny?
Sure. Well, as of this morning, I finally lost the weight that I gained on my cruise.
Well, good, good.
But I did a 72-hour fast that ended this afternoon. And this morning, my blood sugar was 61. Yay.
Yay.
And ketones were 3.0. So my DVR was 20.33. So I will take that.
Yes, that's excellent.
And I didn't check it I'm sure my ketones were higher this afternoon because they're always higher in the afternoon, but I didn't check it before I broke my fast. But it was obviously below 20, and I'm gonna stick to that.
Yeah, excellent.
I've been going to a sauna at my gym, and I don't know what the temperature is because it's just a regular gym, and they don't have a thermometer in there. And if I ask somebody that worked there, they said, well, it's supposed to be, but I don't know. And I didn't take a thermometer. But anyhow, I sweat after about 7 minutes, and I stay in for 20 minutes after I start sweating. And I take water with me because I don't want to pass out trying to get out of the sauna. So, anyhow, so I stress my body, and that's why. So Renee just said that it was typically 198. I don't think it's that hot. I really don't think, I don't know, but I don't think it's that hot. So
I think I would melt at 198.
I think I probably would too. But
but
anyhow, I go to work out a couple of times a week, and then I go to a sauna afterwards for my treat. Instead of an ice cream treat, I have my sauna treat. That's a little bit backwards, but that's good for all of us.
Yes.
So that Dr. Barry's statin thing just came across my phone, so it's available for viewing now if you don't just on YouTube by itself, looks like.
Okay.
I was going to watch that, and I said, oh, I'm going to try to go to Becky's meeting. So I did this instead. I'll watch it, maybe not tomorrow, because I mean, not today. I'll probably go to bed after the meeting, turn off all the blue light. I have my blue blocker glasses on, and try to just read a little bit before I go to sleep. I'm trying to get better sleep, and I only sleep like 7 hours, and I wake up twice to go to the bathroom. So according to Dr. Boz, that's only 5 hours of sleep, and that's not good for me. So
Wow.
Renee just said it was 150 to 175. Yeah, 150 sounds more like it. Like that's probably more like what it is.
Okay. I'm used to the cold weather. Okay. When it gets to 80 degrees, I'm toast here.
Yeah.
I don't do hot. I just, and I'm not anywhere near a sauna.
Well, that's why you take water with you, and you wrap it up in your towel so the water bottle doesn't get hot to your touch, so you can still hold on to it to drink your water.
So no metal water bottles.
Well, no.
What did you say, Julie?
And if you have a necklace on or metal glasses, take those off.
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Good to know. Good to know.
I said, but
I
usually
just
really
take a towel and my water bottle, and the seats are wooden, so it's not so bad. But I wrap my bottle, I use the plastic bottle, but I wrap it up in a towel so the water doesn't get hot while I'm sitting in there.
I'm going to tell you guys a funny story. So
Okay.
you guys know I was in Germany for 7 years, okay? So I was visiting a girlfriend down in southern Germany, and they had a sauna, a community sauna. It was actually a vacation home up in the mountains. So it was a community sauna, and it's men and women together. And to my surprise, it was without clothing. So I take my bathing suit, and I had my towel. And so she said, some of these people might complain about you wearing a bathing suit. I said, why? And she said, well, they don't like the mark of the wet bathing suit on the wood. They like to keep the wood nice and clean. I said, what? So anyway, sure enough, okay, so I can speak German, okay, but I have an accent, okay? So it was like 8 people in the sauna, and 3 were men, and everyone's naked except for me and my girlfriend. So he says to me, we're not allowed to wear towels and bathing suits in here. I said, well, please excuse me. I said, I'm American, and it's not my custom to do saunas naked. He said, well, we don't care about that. He said, you're ruining our sauna here by wearing your towel and your bathing suit. And my girlfriend, she said, oh, leave her alone. She's an American, leave her alone. So he tried another time. And so she said, please stop, just stop, leave her alone. And I said, I'm very sorry, but it's very much against my my practice.
Mhm.
So I thought you guys would enjoy that, because you go to Europe and people do things differently, and they think the Americans are crazy.
I have a
They
story
think we're
too.
prudes. They think we're
Sitting
very
your
much
naked behind
prudes.
on a wooden seat keeps it clean? I don't think so.
So, okay, so I'm a massage therapist here in the United States, and I have had people come here from Europe, and most people who come in for a massage therapy session with me do not wear anything, but I also have them covered with a sheet other than the area I'm working on. And in the United States, really, we're not supposed to completely uncover our what's called undrape our the entire patient during a session, because that means something else is going to be happening. Don't anyway. But in Europe, if you go in for a massage, number one, the room is somewhere between 80 and 90 degrees when you walk in. So you really don't even need a blanket or a sheet covering you. But they view the human body as it's just a body. I mean, that's all it is, and everyone's got, every female probably has boobs and has hair down there. Every guy has one of those, and it's just everybody has what they have because it's a human body. And one of the other things is in Europe, they won't typically, unless you go to one that's more conscientiously designed toward foreigners coming in, they don't even ask women if we want our breasts massaged. They just go after it. And you're like, going, excuse me, those boobs, thank you. Because that's the norm. I mean, it's part of the body. They believe it should be massaged. So yeah, I've had some very interesting encounters here in my office, and had requests from both women and men that I'm like, well, I'm sorry, I can't do that. That's against the law here. You can go to jail.
So I have a sauna story too, but mine isn't from Europe. It's from Japan. I went for a mission service with my church to Japan, and it was a whole group of missionaries, student missionaries, and we were picked up by the church officials at the airport in Tokyo and put on buses, and then we were bussed out of the city of Tokyo almost 2 hours to a retreat area. And when they let us off the bus, they told all the women, you're going this way, and all the men that way. And we all were in a huge tatami matted room, and we were all to stay there together, all the women. And then once we had all our stuff in the room and we were given our futons to sleep on for the night, they said, now it's time for everyone to go to the bathhouse. And I'm like, uh-oh. Nobody warned us of this, and I'm like, we all have to go, and they're like, yeah, you all have to go to the bathhouse. You've been on a flight that's taken 20 hours, and we've driven you around Tokyo and out into these mountains and everything. Everybody's taken a bath. And I'm like, together. And I'm 20 years old, or about to turn 20 at this point. And I'm like freaking out, And I'm like, but what if the men and the women are together, and I don't know whether I should ask or not? And I'm like, okay, get a grip. You're just going to look at the floor and pay attention only to yourself and not think about the other people. And so we go into this like ante room, and they tell us to pick a cubby and take off all our clothes. And then they'll meet us in the bath area. And so all of us are taking off our clothes and trying not to look and everything, because we're all a bunch of Americans and Canadians, and it's just the women, thank heavens. And So then we go into this large bath area, and they have 3 huge tubs and a sauna area, and you sit on these little stools and you wash yourself with soap and everything, and then you get into one of the tubs, and each tub is increasingly hot. And then you get into a cold rinse, and then you go in the sauna. And I'm like, do I have to do this? You know? And so I did it, and I keep saying in my head, look at the floor, look at the floor, look at the floor. Don't look at other people. Don't think about other people looking at you. And I made it through the retreat before we all went out to our stations, you know, where we were supposed to be stationed for the year. But about a month after I arrived in Japan, I still wasn't speaking or reading Japanese yet. I was sent to a remote town to teach for a day for a teacher who was gone. And they said, you know, there's a bathhouse, and we'll leave a map to the bathhouse, and everything, and it'll be fine, and someone will bring you meals and stuff, because we're going to have you sleep in the church where the classes are held. And I'm like, okay, all right. So I've got my map, and I've got my shampoo and everything, and I'm going to the bathhouse, and I get to the door of the bathhouse, and there's 2 Japanese characters, one on each door. And I'm like, which one is female? I have no idea. And I'm like, okay. I'm just going to be cool about this. I've been through the bathhouse experience before. I'm going to pick one, and I'm going to go in, and I'm going to pay my money. It was 170 yen to take a bath at the bathhouse. I'm just going to pay my money. I'm not going to understand anything but anybody says. I'm going to go to the cubby hole. I'm going to strip down, and then go in and do my business and get out. So I go in through the door. I pick one, eeny, meeny, miny, mo, and I'm looking down, and the guy at the counter where I paid my 170, he's like, oh, and I don't understand a thing he's saying, you know, oh, and I'm like, yes, thank you. And so I move over to the cubbies. I'm not paying any attention, and I'm stripping down. I'm almost all the way undressed. And then out of the corner of my eye, I see all this movement, and I look up, and it's all the naked men in the bathhouse going, yes, the foreigners coming in our side. Yes, come on. Yeah. And I'm like, holy crap. So I grab all my stuff, and I go out the door, and I'm like, okay, now I'm standing here on the street in just my bra and panties, but I've paid for a bath, and I really want a bath. Should I go back in there? And so I'm like, yeah, I'm going back in. So I went back in the other door this time, and the men have come out of the bath, and they're now around the counter where you pay, and they're going, no, come back. And I'm like, no, that's okay. It's okay. And so I go up, and I put my stuff in the cubby with the ladies, and I go in, and I have a bath with the ladies and everything. But when I come out, the men are all dressed, and they're waiting outside, and they're trying to tell me they really wanted me to come into their side. And I'm like, no. And I'm like, now how am I going to get back to this church without them following me and finding out I'm alone, you know? And it was something. Anyway, that's my story about baths.
And I never get tired of hearing that story. It's just great. There are so many stories from Japan.
Yes, I have a lot of stories.
Yeah, the other thing is, that was back in like 1981. I mean,
Mhm.
a lot now in Japan, probably they have, the English letters on, it's not just in Japanese. Most of the signs are bilingual now, especially in the larger areas.
When we went back, see, I was in Japan 1980, 81, 82, early 82. No. Yeah. Anyway, then Scott and I got married, and we went back to Japan together in the 90s. and things had changed quite a bit in
Yeah,
Tokyo
91 to
and
93. Yeah.
yeah. In Tokyo and the bigger cities, everything is bilingual. But when you get out to Sodagawa, Scott, it's not bilingual. You got to know the kanji.
Yeah,
And
and out in the small towns and stuff and out in the country, yeah, it's not, yeah, right. At
yeah,
least
but
back then it wasn't.
when I got back to the church, I got out my dictionary and I learned the kanji for male and female. I was never doing that again. No, that was a bit much. And by the
Isn't it
way,
one-
yes, all the church members heard about the gaijin, which is foreigner in Japanese, who went to the bathhouse and went in the men's. And so when they came to classes the next day, they're like, were you the gaijin that went to the bathhouse in the wrong room? And I'm like, yes, it was me. And they had a rip roaring good time with that. So anyway, I made
that was
someone's
your-
day.
It was your
Nothing
bonding
like the mother of
experience with them.
necessity teaching you that you needed to learn Japanese first.
Yes, yes. It was a crash course in Japanese from that point on. I did not ever want to.
The other thing is, I mean, the people in charge of the program should have, actually,
Well,
realized that.
Prepared her a little better.
Yeah,
well,
that
the thing
they needed a
was,
little bit of guidance there.
the teacher that normally taught at this church each week, she had lived in Japan for 3 years and knew Japanese. They never had to tell her anything or, teach her anything. So I was just another teacher. They didn't know that I was fresh off the boat, so to speak, and the Japanese think nothing of body either. They're like, whatever. I mean, trust
And
me.
I probably most cultures around the world actually are they view nudity as a lot different than us, really, probably, I mean, except for the Muslim countries, then it's,
Yeah.
I mean, if you think about it, so I mean, it's your culture, influences a lot of what you think about, what part of the body is appropriate to be uncovered and covered, so yeah, and it's very different from in different cultures.
Yeah, and
Tammy had started to say something when I did too about
oh, okay.
your comment.
Tammy.
You remember what it was, Tammy?
What was she talking about?
Well, we were talking about her saying, well, what my comment was, well, maybe she needed, that's nothing like the mother of necessity teaching you that it's probably good for you to have to know Japanese.
It couldn't have been too important. I don't remember. The thought went in and came out.
The thing, Tammy, that I thought of when this whole conversation was starting was when you lived in Arkansas, and we went to Hot Springs, and I told you I wanted to go to the bathhouse, and you're like, they will wash you. You'll be naked and a woman's going to wash you all over. And I'm like, oh no, thank you.
Because I did do it first and then I warned her. And on your first story, how old were you? Did you say you were 20 or
Yes.
so?
Mhm.
So you didn't know enough that you could have said, no, you're not going to do something.
No.
I mean, if you didn't want to do something, you should have said, no, I'm not going to do that. And then what are they going to do? They're not going to do anything. But at 20 years old, you just kind of went with the flow. And now today, you may make a different decision than what you did before. But I would just say, no, I'm not going to do that.
Yeah. Well, it's funny you should say they will wash you, because Becky, later in the time I was there, the company I was working for went on a company retreat to Hakone Springs, which is a spring area of Japan where there are hot springs, and there are outdoor hot tubs that are natural tubs. And but before you go out to the hot spring natural tubs, you use the bathhouse area of the hotel, and they scrub you. They have women employed that just scrub you. Now, the women that are there to scrub you down before you go out to the hot springs are dressed. They wear clothing, but you don't. And
And I would have been, that's their job. They've seen it all. Like if it was that, it wouldn't have been so bad. But if my sisters and I were all doing it together, no.
yeah, that's a little
No,
weird.
no.
That's a little weird. But
That's where it
listen,
ended.
the hotel bath house where you get scrubbed was bisexual. So both males and females
Yeah,
were
not
there.
okay.
And my immediate superior male was there in all his glory. And I'm like, look to the floor, look to the floor. We're looking to the floor, everybody. The floor is great here. I love those tiles, and the ladies, however, the ladies of the office were very protective of me, and they kind of, hung around me so that all the men from the factory, because I was employed by a Japanese factory, and the ladies were very protective, and stayed around me so all the men wouldn't gawk at me and stuff. But I bet you those men, because this was like 6 months into my time there, I bet you those men from the factory were all thinking about it before they went to the factory, because so many of them, when I passed them, in the factory, are you coming on the retreat? Are you coming on this year's retreat? And I'm like, of course, I wouldn't miss it. And then they'd all talk among themselves. And I'm like, oh man, they must have known, because they go to this hot spring every year. But I was an oddity. One of the things the Japanese constantly told me and my daughters when my daughter, when she was born in Japan, was how white we are and how beautiful that is. And so many Japanese women want that complexion. So Scott mentioned culture, and culture not only directs how we feel about our naked bodies and showing it off and bathing and all of that, it also directs our food. And when I lived in Japan, meals were much more vegetable and fish and meat and egg based than they were here. And the 2 times in my life that I lived in Japan, I always lost a lot of weight, and I looked good. Okay. Because I was eating a lot of eggs, a lot of fish, a lot of vegetables, and I wasn't drinking fruit juices because fruit juice in Japan was horribly expensive. And trying to make American dishes, such as stuffing for Thanksgiving was difficult, or spaghetti. And pizza was an interesting endeavor because you would get corn and green beans on your pizza, and I'm not a fan. And yeah, at the Pizza Hut in Japan, in Tokyo, they put corn and peas and green beans on a pizza. It's like, bleh. That is not what pizza's for. Absolutely not what it's for. And but in general, the Japanese diet agreed with me very well, but I didn't continue it when I came home. I went back to the SAD diet and gained on my weight, got all plump and everything. But I actually think that it would be very easy for a Japanese person in Japan to go keto. What do you think, Scott?
Well, yeah, except for the rice. I mean, they have, everything has rice and stuff. And well, the other thing is noodles. I mean, they eat a lot of noodles, the wheat-based noodles.
Mm-hmm. Well, a lot of the noodles they have in Japan are actually barley based, but it's still a gluten grain and a grain
Yeah, right.
nonetheless. But Scott, you can actually get your meals without rice. You can tell them I don't want the rice. And so they usually have a miso soup,
Yeah.
and then a salt pickle. It's some kind of vegetable that's been pickled in salt. And then there's like a seaweed salad, and then there's your hot vegetables and everything. So they do have, tempura, which is deep fried vegetables in a batter. and everything, but I think it would be easy to go keto in Japan. Yeah, Renee.
You know, what I find fascinating about the Japanese and Chinese dietary needs is that per capita, they have truly actually some of the thinnest and healthiest people in the world when you consider the amount of rice that they eat. And that got me to thinking prior to keto, my thought was it could it not be the reason that they are so healthy? They were so well shaped in you know, as far as their weight. Was it because of the ratio between the amount of vegetables that they ate versus the amount of rice? Because all the rice and noodles were served with so many meals, there was a ton more vegetables and eggs, like you said, and not as high on the meat, but there was so much more of that compared to the amount of rice and noodles that at least I was typically seeing served with the meals.
Yeah, I mean,
some ratio there. Scott, what do you think as far as nutritionally speaking? Was I at least somewhat on the right frame of thought?
Well, yeah, I think, I think so. Yeah. The other thing is, I mean, the Japanese do a lot more walking than us too. And so it's not just diet, it's also activity level. Walking or riding a bike, it's much more common there. Yeah.
Yeah, when I lived in Japan in the 80s by myself, I would walk 15 minutes to the train station, and then I had to go up 49 steps and down 49 steps to get to my first train platform. And then I had to swap trains and go up 49 steps and down 49 steps to get to the next train platform. And then it was a 15-minute walk from that train station to where I worked. And then I would have to walk around the factory picking up sales reports and things like that. And, you know, when Scott and I lived in Japan, Japanese have a very small little refrigerator, so you can't like stock up on stuff and have a ton of stuff. So I had to go to the grocery store every day, every other day. And it was a 10 to 15 minute walk from the grocery store to the apartment and back. And, you know, when we went to church on the weekends, I can't remember how many stations did we have to, I think we transferred twice to get to where we went to church.
Yeah. Right.
Yeah. And I mean, I was pregnant a lot of the time while we were there, you know, with my eldest who was born there and my next oldest that was born in the States about 2 months after we returned. And going up all of those stairs and down them again. That was fun. But yeah, the Japanese typically get a lot more exercise than us, but the change in the Japanese body type from when I was there in the 80s to when I was there in the 90s was huge. And what changed? American fast food. I mean, they have McDonald's, they have Arby's, they have Burger King, they've got KFC, they've got everything we've got.
They've got Subway as well.
Yeah, they have Subway and everything. And whereas when I was there in the 80s, I couldn't find clothing that fit me because I was an American size 16 when I lived in Japan, and I'm very tall. I'm 5'10" and a half, and there just was nothing that fit me in Japan. No shoes fit my big old feet, and no clothing fit me. No stockings fit me. My parents would send me stockings because I wore them back then. But when we came back, and when Scott and I went back in the 90s, they had larger sizes now available because many Japanese were now larger sized. And the seats on buses were very small. When I was there in the 80s, they had gotten bigger by the time I got there in the 90s. And one of my girlfriends there, my Japanese friends there, told me that the school she taught at had problems getting uniforms for some of the high school students because they were just not Japanese sized. And that's what they would call it. They're not Japanese sized. And, it's all diet. And a lot of Japanese families don't own a vehicle because parking is a premium and very expensive. And driving is insane in Japan. I never drove in Japan. I drove in Spain when I lived in Spain. Scott, we never drove when we were in Mexico, did we?
No.
No. Yeah. But I didn't want to drive in Spain. The Spanish drivers are crazy. Ditto with the Portuguese drivers. Oh, insane. But so the lifestyle in Japan at that time, I'd like to go back to Japan sometime and see how much it's changed even now. But there was a slang for people who got fat, and it was very derogatory towards America. It was American fatty, basically. I can't remember the word for it, but I asked one of my friends, what does that mean? I keep hearing that. And they're like, American fatty, and that was, towards the Japanese who were bigger and not Japanese size. Wow, he's getting big. He's grown a lot. Wow, oh, such a nice dog.
Baby.
Anyway, so here in America, our culture has been so seeped in the sad diet. It's bread, potatoes, bread, pasta, bread. Did I mention potatoes? And then sugar, sugar, and then seed oils. Does anyone remember when seed oils came in? Does anyone remember? Because my mother told me that they had oleo and butter through her childhood, but then when she got married in the late 40s, margarine was starting to seep in. Does anybody know when the seed oils and everything? Because
I thought it was in the 80s, but I'm not sure.
They had Crisco then too.
Yeah, Crisco. Yeah. My mom remembered Crisco from her childhood as well, but they mostly used oleo. I don't even know what oleo is.
That's
And
margarine.
is it a margarine? Okay.
It says Google says it arrived in the 30s.
Okay. And
Early 1900s,
early 1900s for what? Oleo?
first vegetable oils.
Oh, for the first vegetable oils.
Chinese
Okay.
and the Japanese produced soy oil as early as 2000 BC.
Oh, yeah. I don't think they use, well, of course they use soy oil. Soy sauce is very familiar to them. But yeah, so these
It
oils.
probably just had a different name.
Yeah,
It probably wasn't called vegetable oil. It's probably called Crisco oil or something, or some brand name probably, instead of, recognized by just vegetable oil.
Yeah.
Well,
So
it says that things such as processed oils, soybean, corn, rapeseed, canola, cottonseed, safflower were only introduced into the American diet in the early 1900s, even though they are been around for like 8,000 years in other countries.
wow.
I got that one up there too. That exact word. So I'm sure I'm looking at the same thing.
So
Canola oil. Okay. Canola oil was first produced in Canada in 1974.
I
Was
knew
small.
canola was much more recent than some of the others, you know. Um, are any of you using a seed oil at all now, or are you all on avocado or olive oil?
Olive oil and avocado.
Yeah.
I really
Butter.
appreciate that Ginny taught me how to make that avocado mayonnaise. I mean, that is so easy. And my husband still buys the, what is it, Prime something? Primal
Primal
Kitchen.
Kitchen.
And it's like $8 for like a quart of it, or maybe a pint of it. But I can, as Ginny says, I can whip that thing up in like 2 minutes flat.
So quick.
Yeah.
I like
And,
coconut oil.
I use coconut oil. Also, avocado, olive oil, coconut oil, butter.
My husband uses Crisco oil or vegetable oil that's up there, and I don't always eat the things he might use it for because he eats potatoes and he fries it in potatoes and stuff. So if I may or may not have seed oil, but it would be, occasionally, since my husband works second shift and I'm home at night and I work days, so we don't see each other anyway. He used to be the cook in the house, but now he's not around except for the weekends.
And my problem is the only seed oils I use are in my massage therapy office. I use them on your body.
Yeah.
And I use bacon grease in all
It's
my,
really good
whatever
too.
few vegetables I eat, I use bacon grease.
Tammy, what's in the Primal mayonnaise? What's that made from? Do you know,
Avocado
Patricia?
oil, I believe.
It's avocado,
Oh.
I think.
Yeah, see, avocado and olive and coconut do not agree with me. And I have some problems with butter, but I'm getting better with butter. So I'm still using safflower oil because it seems to be the only one that works for me. And I've been trying to collect my bacon grease and use it, but I just have a problem with the flavor of it. I mean, I like bacon, but I'm not sure I like bacon grease. And lard is, can't stand it. So can't stand the
Well,
smell, can't stand the
You're
taste.
using ghee as well these days.
Yeah, I've been trying ghee, but I'm thinking ghee is what's causing some of my upper back pain. And so I'm still experimenting. It's very tasty. I love putting the ghee in with my steak and baking it. Tasty. But the upper back pain is, I don't like that. It's
So
not-
Jenny, how do you make your mayonnaise with avocado?
It's well, if you go on Pinterest to say olive oil mayo, it's a cup of avocado oil instead of the olive oil. So it's a cup of oil and 1 egg. I use a whole egg, and I think a couple of tablespoons of vinegar or lemon juice, and a half teaspoon of salt, and you can put garlic or onion powder in if you want to. And I think that's it. Isn't that it, Patricia?
Well, I use that dry mustard. I
Oh,
put
yeah, and a
just a
half
little
teaspoon of
pinch
dry
of the dry
mustard.
mustard in it.
Or you can use a teaspoon of Dijon mustard. You have to use a little bit
Okay.
of mustard because that helps the
Renee's shaking her head.
emulsification.
Renee's shaking her head. What's the matter?
And you just put it in
If I can taste at all the mustard,
oh, you can't taste it.
we will have a reverse issue coming on.
Oh,
Well, me and mustard are not for, okay, here's an example. I love deviled eggs. As long as when you make the filling with mustard, it's not so mustardy that it's.
No, you can't taste the mustard. But then
But
you
if
put
I
all that
can-
stuff
if I can taste the
in a wide
mustard-
mouth jar.
I can't do it. I gag really
Yeah.
bad.
And
I don't even use mustard in my deviled eggs, so I don't use mustard.
Yeah.
Now in potato salad I used to, but I don't use it in my deviled eggs.
yeah, I used to love mustard, but then mustard stopped loving me. And so it went the way of the bird, gone forever. So.
Oh, that's too bad because mustard's really good for you. It helps. It with the turmeric in it, the curcumin.
Mhm.
It's really good for arthritis pain.
Yeah, Scott loves mustard. He puts it in with his mackerel salad that he makes and
Yeah.
everything.
Yeah.
What do you
Also, if you've got a cold,
I like mustard.
take fresh mustard seeds and grind them up in a mortar and pestle and add a little bit of oil to it. You can add other things, but you basically want to add a mustard to it or a oil to it, but it needs to be really, really thick, and then apply it on the chest, and it will literally pull the cold out of your chest. It's an old, very
Called a poultice.
Yeah.
yeah. It's a really old. I mean, the mountain people used to use this years before doctors started giving us other stuff for like pneumonia. They would, if a person was getting what we now call pneumonia, they would call it consumption. They actually would a mustard poultice on you. It would usually draw it out, and the person would survive.
Mhm. If you don't like the mustard, you can use onion to make an onion poultice. It does the same thing.
Mhm.
So, anyway, boy, we've been everywhere tonight, haven't we?
This has been quite interesting.
Well, I
Well,
have a confession to everybody. I was a really super bad girl yesterday. So since this is keto, I'm gonna go before the people and bow down and say I was a super bad girl. Yesterday was the anniversary of my father's birthday. He passed away in 2013 along with my mother 3 months later. But my kids and I try to get together once a year on their grandpa's birthday, and we celebrate his birth, his life, not his death. And so we all went out, and it's probably one of my worst. I have just a couple of days that I just throw caution to the wind and cheat like crazy. And yesterday was I'm gonna cheat like I'm not even gonna wake up tomorrow. So I had this huge, wonderful Italian meal, and oh my goodness, I was almost miserable because I don't even eat near that much food anymore, much less pasta. And I mean, I was pleasantly surprised, but at the same time shocked at how little I could eat. But it was all very good, and I also imbibed, and I had some wine with dinner, but I tried to make sure it was on the reds instead of the sweets. So I was at least trying to do something semi-keto, but guys, it's going to take me a week, I think, to get back into ketosis. So that's my confession. I was a bad girl. I had a blast, but oh my goodness, am I paying for it today? I feel so sluggish and
Well, I
Oh.
have a similar story to that. I came home from work the other day, and my husband had made some macaroni and cheese with big spiral. Oh, and I can eat pasta out of the box raw. I can just do that. And so I wasn't hungry, but it was there. And so I had one bite. Well, that led to half of what was left. But I experienced such gas pains in 2 hours. I swear never again am I going to eat pasta, because it was awful. I was almost doubled over. It was so bad. So it's not really worth it for me. And then also the swelling that comes onto my hands from when I do that, it's terrible. Yep. So I'm like, no, it's just not worth it.
Yeah, so many times it's not worth it.
I have to thank you though, Elizabeth, because see, one of the things that I found was to me, a fascinating difference though. Okay, I cheated, yes, but typically in the past, if I would cheat on a diet, My feet, if you've ever seen the Flintstones, would instantaneously the next day, I would look like I had all of a sudden grown Barney Rubble ankles.
Mm-hmm.
And now the only thing that really truly swells the next day is my hands. That's how I've probably eaten something I shouldn't have, because it'll show up in my hands. But I mean, before you introduced me to keto, I couldn't figure out why all of a sudden I would wake up with these Barney Rubble feet. And I get it now. I understand what all of those carbs were doing to my body. I mean, it's just mind blowing how removing one, I mean, I say one item, but one, I want to say food group, it's not even a food group, but one item from your diet can make that huge of a difference systemically. And then when you do cheat, you at least know almost immediately what your culprit is. You don't have to guess anymore.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, no, I understand. If anybody's trying to secretly figure out whether I'm staying keto or not, all you have to do is look at my ring. Can it easily pull off my finger, or do I have to twist it and pull it and pull it and pull it? No, that sucker pulls off nice and easy. Or get a gander at my ankles, because if my ankles get all fat. Oh, hey, I wanted to ask all of you. I watched a video this week where they were talking about secret signs of being insulin resistant. Now, I think all of you will remember Dr. Boz talks about how you don't have hair on your toes. If you're insulin resistant, you stop having hair on your toes. But this other sign kind of threw me a bit. It's if your eyebrows don't gray like your hair does, then that's a sign you're insulin resistant. And my eyebrows didn't gray at the same rate as my hair. Yeah, this is bottle blonde, but my hair is actually very gray. And but my eyebrows did not gray. And so I don't know, maybe you want to look at your eyebrows and see whether they grayed or not. But I want my eyebrows to gray. I wonder how long it will take for me to not be insulin resistant to get them to gray. I know it's a silly, crazy thing to think about, but yeah.
Okay, so
I
I
don't
was
have
at
to
one
worry
point,
about it. Everything's great.
at one point I was a cosmetologist, and then when I got into Chinese medicine, I discovered a few wonderful little pearls of wisdom regarding hair.
Mm-hmm.
And had not expected this, but do you all understand why women will gray here and gray more evenly throughout the hairline, and men typically only gray here and along here? It's because of how, when we age, what color our skin of our face becomes, and how much in the way of wrinkles that we get. Women typically will develop, by and large, and it's not an overall every woman, but by and large, women will tend to get more wrinkles here at the eyes from smiling. We tend to get them, we also tend to get more of a fattier jowl here, but men tend to get very deep grooved wrinkles when they wrinkle. However, their skin tone becomes darker, whereas women tend to become lighter. So our hair becomes lighter too, so it doesn't emphasize our gray, our lines on our face as much as men. Plus, men tended to be outdoors more, so their skin would be darker than women.
Mm-hmm. Renee, if I get any lighter, I'm going to disappear. I'm so lily white right now. Woo. Some people want to call me
some sun.
Yeah, some people want to call me Casper. But that's an interesting theory. I don't know. I started coloring my hair years ago. I can't remember how many. Scott, how long have I been coloring my hair? Well, he's not
Yeah,
paying.
I don't remember, not sure.
Was I coloring it when we bought this
That's a
house?
good answer, Scott.
Probably, yeah.
That's
Well,
a
you know, but
safe answer.
well, the thing is, I mean, all your family starts graying in like your mid 40s. So, you know, it's
Actually, I had a sister who was totally gray by 30. And then my brother started graying in his 40s, and my other sister started graying in her 40s. I was the last one to gray, but then again, they were all brunettes. I'm the only blonde in the family. So
And that's another factor into it as well, is what color is the original hair.
yeah.
So if you're going to color your hair as we age, if you want to keep yourself looking youthful, do not put a dark color. If you're already getting wrinkles in your face, don't use a dark color near your face. Now, if you want a darker color back here, darken up all you want. But anything that is close to the front of your face needs to be a lighter color, or it will super emphasize any wrinkles and any jowl that you have.
What about dark-haired people? You're a dark-haired person. What about you?
You haven't seen my hair down. I am right through here. If I pull this down and my hair wasn't, right now I've got an oil on it because I'm giving it an oil treatment. But when it's all clean from right down through here, I'm very, very gray, right near my temples and near my face where most of my wrinkles hang out.
So has your face lightened over the years?
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Well, yes and no, because in Chinese medicine, I have what's called liver fire, which means liver is on overdrive all the time, which is why I have these lovely little rosy cheeks all the time. Rosy cheeks, by the way, are considered liver fire in Chinese medicine because not only are they rosy, but for people with true liver fire, also they are very warm to the touch, hotter than the rest of my face.
Yeah, Dr. Boz, in that video she did using my data of my liver and how it healed going on to keto, she mentioned, look at that redness of her face. That's liver problems. And and I don't have that redness in my face anymore unless I'm on a bender. And I don't mean alcoholic bender. I don't drink alcohol. But any kind of, when I get into wheat or potatoes or pasta or, some other sugar and stuff. And sometimes if I get too much milk products, because me and milk don't have a fabulous relationship. But anyway, well,
if I remember, Elizabeth, I will try to remember before our next meeting so you can punch it in there. I actually have a sheet that will show different zones that tell you about different parts of your body, that when you see these areas differently colored, it tells you about your internal processing. I have a sheet that shows you in color. If you see this, then it means this.
It could be very interesting. So, okay, well, Melody, we haven't heard that much from you. I know you wrote in and said a couple of things saying you haven't cheated. Good girl. And I have to figure out why things happen. Her Boz ratio is always under 40. Go her. Nothing is great on her. We hate you so much, Melanie. Melody. So anything else anybody wants to say, or anybody got a question? Anybody want something researched over the week or something? Now, next Wednesday night, Dr. Hanson will not be here with us unless he wants to come in from Indiana. Are you going to try and hook up with us from Indiana?
Well, since they don't have internet there at the house, I'd have to, well, I could call in, I suppose, but I don't know if I will.
Yeah. He's going to visit his mom and his brothers in Indiana and leaving me here at home by myself. No, actually with the kids and the dogs and the cats and everything. So, so he won't be here next week. You'll just be stuck with me. No Scott. And Jenny's got track. What?
Melody has lots of comp problems. I'm not sure what she means by that.
Yeah, what's comp problems?
Computer maybe?
Oh, computer problems. Yeah.
Oh, cool.
Yeah, they happen, and I hate computer problems. Trust me. Hate
My
computer
only
problems.
question that we might want to consider is, although I'm doing good about not consuming sugar near like I used to, I still have enough of a sweet tooth that I still like to add some form of artificial sweetener to my coffee. And I've been using stevia, but I feel like it's beginning to not do well on me. Is there any other recommendations? I've looked into erythritol, but is there any other ones that anyone recommends?
Okay. I had an experience in the last couple of weeks with erythritol. It did not go well. It gave me the runs. I bought some little mini chocolate chip cookies that are keto cookies for my daughter to take to have as a snack, a keto snack. And I had a terrible craving, and I opened one of the little individual packets and I ate them, and they were okay. There was a flavor in them I didn't like very much, but a couple hours later, my body does not like the erythritol at all. And I've tried monk fruit before. Ugh, ugh, ugh. I don't like the taste of monk fruit. If you do, that's great. And stevia, I'm allergic to stevia. It causes shortness of breath, and so I can't do that. I have some sucralose in the house, but I've never gotten up the nerve to try it.
Dr. Boz says that allulose is the best artificial to pick from. It goes allulose, monk fruit, and then stevia.
Mhm.
So her recommendation, if you need to use sweetener, is allulose. I have not tried it myself.
It might be allulose I have, because I bought whatever Dr. Boz recommended, but I just haven't gotten the nerve to try it.
I like the monk fruit. I really do. I just haven't used it as much as I've used the stevia. And the stevia, I think, is beginning to give me stomach gastro upset. So I'm trying to get myself off of it. And actually, I want to get off of all of them. But
Yeah.
For me, if I go, I hate to say it, even after 24, 48 hours, I still have a massive headache if I don't have some form of sweetener with, even if it's like you say, the monk fruit. I get this just mind-blowing, almost migraine that I can't function with.
Oh, the monk fruit gives you a headache, or if you don't use it, you get the headache.
If I don't use any kind of sweetener whatsoever, I get this real headache.
Well,
that was the next thing too. Sorry, but her saying her headache. I've had 2 migraines now within 2 weeks of each other, and I've not had much trouble with migraines. And I'm just trying to figure out why I have them now after becoming keto. I didn't have them the first year I did it, but then I didn't pay attention to the sweetener either. I used the artificial sweetener.
Typically, when it comes to headaches, headaches come in different types. I actually have an article about the different types of headaches and what might be causing them, because they present differently. I can send it to you, Julie, if you'd be interested. And the other thing is since going keto for myself, I finally figured out that if I'm low on potassium, I'll get a headache. If I'm low on sodium, I'll get a headache. If I'm low on water, I'll get a headache. If I eat a bunch of sugar, I'll get a headache. If I'm low on sleep, I get a headache. Now, luckily, I don't get a headache very often, but as soon as I start feeling a headache, I'm like, okay, how much potassium have I had in the last day? How much water have I had? How much sodium have I had? Did I take my magnesium supplements today? Because that's what's normally causing my headache issues. But, you know, Renee,
It could be potassium because I don't take potassium.
I,
I take magnesium and I use salts and try to drink water. I don't necessarily, if I'm at work, always get to, but
mhm.
I have not taken potassium
Well, my
replacement.
personal opinion, and this is what I tell all of my clients, that supplementing potassium is very touchy. And you're going to know this, Julie. People who are very low on potassium have problems that many of them have to go to the ER. And the same is for people that get too much potassium. A lot of times they end up in the ER. So for me, what I need to do is I have to have 2 good servings of a potassium rich food. My choices are broccoli and tomatoes. I love tomatoes as long as they're not all sandy and nasty. I hate those ones with that sandy texture. They got to be delicious, juicy tomatoes. So if I go a day without any potassium rich food, like I forget to eat my tomatoes or my broccoli, then I might get a headache on the second day, and then I'll realize, oh crap, I forgot potassium yesterday. But I don't,
Melody said stevia is in my protein drinks, but it
yeah.
affects my body, heart and blood pressure, also spikes my blood sugars.
Mhm.
Have monk fruit, but haven't used it too much yet.
Yeah, I saw that. I was going to get to it. So I guess Melody, stevia, you might need to find a different source of, I think it's pea protein that you're drinking now. You might need to find a different source that doesn't have any stevia added. Because that's not good to be pushing your blood pressure or having a heart issue or your blood sugar being pushed up. There was a question Melody said earlier too, or was it? Yeah, here it was. I was wondering if I toggle between below 20 to below 40, will I still be renewing my cells? Well, that's a good question. Um, Dr. Boz typically says that as long as your ratio is below 80, you're definitely in ketosis, and you're going to have that kind of effect. Where the body is able to renew and heal cells. But your body may be different. I know my body wants to be definitely on that lower end, but you're just going to have to see how you do, overall. I don't know what's on the screen. Oh, that's an animal. Oh, no, that's Julie. Oh, sorry. So Jenny, do you have any ideas about sugars and sweeteners and headaches?
Well, there are a lot of people that are allergic to any of those things, but like Julie said that, I think Julie said that Dr. Boz said allulose is the best one. Her husband is allergic to stevia. It's in the ragweed family.
Mm-hmm.
So if you're allergic to ragweed and you have histamine response from that, then you'll be allergic to stevia, and you can develop allergies at any time. And I
Mm-hmm.
was going to tell you that sucralose is Splenda. So
Oh no.
you said you
No.
probably have what Dr. Boss said.
Yeah,
So
I
you
think
probably
it's
have
allulose
allulose.
because I would
Yeah.
never buy anything that's Splenda.
Another one you can try is xylitol. Some people use xylitol, but you have to be
that
careful. You can't have that around animals
no,
because it's
that
very
makes
deadly
me,
poisonous to animals.
yeah, I can't even use toothpaste or gum with xylitol. It just
Okay.
I
Then
get this heat going
yeah.
up my head. It's bad.
Jenny,
So,
that was a really good comment about the ragweed because I did not know that. So now I know I'm going to have to stop that because I do
Yeah,
have.
it's in the stevia. The stevia plant is in the ragweed family. If you see a stevia plant, have you ever seen peppermint plant with the way the green leaves grow on peppermint? Stevia plants look just like a peppermint plant.
mhm,
If you want to, if people that want to grow their own stevia and take a leaf and put it in their iced tea, it'll
Mhm.
sweeten it right up. But not if you're allergic to ragweed. And I'm itching just thinking about it because
yeah.
I'm not allergic to anything. But when I start talking about allergies, I start itching all over.
Ooh, terrible. I'm going to mention one more thing and then we're going to have to go. This week I watched a random video. I mean, just random. And it was about carnivore. And this lady, she says, if you just want a sweet treat, but you don't want to mess with your ketones and everything or use a artificial sweetener, she says, get a pot and a whisk and a stick of butter and put the butter in the pot and just turn on the heat and start stirring it and keep stirring and stirring and stirring until the butter turns brown.
Yeah, brown butter.
She says you're caramelizing the butter. It makes it sweet. It's not an overwhelming sweet, but it's sweet. And she said you can get one of those silicone ice cube trays and pour the butter into the ice cube tray and put it in the freezer for at least an hour. And then you can pop them out and you can drop that in your coffee to sweeten your coffee. And she says, you're still keto, you're still carnivore, you haven't eaten a real sugar, you're not going to mess up your ketones, she says, or your blood sugar. And it's delicious. And she
That
says,
sounds delicious.
she says, I will pop one of those things out of the ice cube tray. She says, once they're frozen, I take them out of the ice cube tray and put them in a bowl in my fridge. And she says, I'll just take one and pop it into my mouth. It's a sweet treat for me. And I was actually thinking of telling Melody about that because she was like, I need more fat. I need more fat. But I can't eat butter. I just can't gnaw on a stick of butter. And I'm like, Melody, maybe you should make yourself one of these little sweet treats with a butter because you're still eating butter. You're still getting the fat, Maybe I'll stick a link on to that video on the description with this video so you'll have it. And I'm going to try it, even though I many times will get a flare up of upper back pain with butter, but I'm going to try it because if I could eat that rather than something full of sugar, hey, I'm probably better off. Now, Melody says the pea protein is causing a lot of bowel problems. Oh, that's disappointing. Yes. So, well, I guess you need to stop eating it unless it's the stevia that's causing the bowel problem. Maybe it's not the pea protein itself, but you said that there's stevia in your protein. So maybe it's the stevia. So if you could find a pea protein, okay, well, what other protein has the stevia? It's in the chocolate. So is there chocolate pea protein that has stevia? Oh, it's a protein drink. Well, what kind of protein is it? Like a whey protein? I hope it's not soy. Ooh. But whatever. Oh, it's two different drinks. They're both keto. Okay, well, whichever one has the stevia, you probably shouldn't do it anymore. And the pea protein, unfortunately, probably has to go too, because you can't live your life with bowel problems. Bowel problems are not happiness.
I have found that, at least for me, most of the commercial protein drinks that I wanted wouldn't agree with me. And I don't know why. I just know that the commercially put together protein drinks, now I could make my own protein drinks at home till the cows come home.
Mhm.
buy something that's commercially made, there is something, and I haven't figured it out yet, but there's something in them that doesn't agree with me either, Melody. So don't feel bad.
Well, for me, most protein drinks are made out of rice protein, which is not keto. And then there's pea protein, which I already know makes me swell. And whey protein, I can't do whey, and I can't do soy, and I can't do any of the nut ones because can't eat the nuts. So I just don't even think about protein drinks of any kind. So, anyway. All right. Yeah, I see you're trying to get protein for your muscles, and everything, and that's commendable, but I don't think that's going to be your source for it. So, anybody have anything else to say? Wilma, I always love your picture of your kitty. I know you're not a big talker and everything, but I just wanted to let you know I do see you and I love your kitty. And anyway, so if no one else has anything else they want to say, or talk about or bring up for next week, I will let us all go. We'll end for here and we'll see you next week. So, all right.